All right, so let's get started by clarifying the names for any who are not familiar with you guys. So here we have Maddie, and then Jason, and then Jordan. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here today, guys. So let's just get warmed up by talking a little bit more about the business. So you're all co-founders. So how did this get started?
I can start. So yeah, to kind of go off of the intro. So Jordan and Jason are brothers. I'm their cousin. As you mentioned, we grew up doing everything together from the very early days of our lives, playing games, making up games, all the sports, everything. So we all made our way here to Utah. School and everything. We kind of just ended up here, the classic Mormon story. But about so at the end of 2019, I was working at a golf software company called 4Up. And we all love golf also. So golf just is something that we always talk about, we always do together. And so kind of through a series of events, I had the idea to make a golf apparel company. And Jason was also working at the company at the time. So I went over to him and I was like, hey, we should sell golf joggers, which is a very random thing. It was a product that did exist but hadn't been marketed very well. So then I also reached out to Jordan, and then their brother Kirk is also involved, and I kind of pitched the idea to them that we should create this brand and kind of focus on the athletic golfer, like you mentioned. And I mean, there's a lot of other steps kind of in there, but essentially...
It's that easy. You just have an idea, you start a business, right?
Yeah, super easy. No, I'm just kidding. But we kind of, came up with different ideas, exactly how we wanted them to look. We identified a few manufacturers, came up with the name. And I know I'm flying through the story, but basically we ordered 250 pairs of joggers, and that was kind of our test. That was going to be, our way to see if people actually were interested in buying the joggers. And so we ordered them. We had got one sample that fit Jason. This is where we usually make a joke about his muscles.
Am I supposed to have a joke prepared for my muscles?
No, just everyone looks at your muscles at this point.
As Jordan calls it, it's a controversial golf physique. So, but it got a lot of attention. Like you said, they fit me. So we took pictures of me wearing the one pair of joggers. I was going to wear them today. I forgot them at the office, though, that original pair. But it's funny because in the beginning, we started selling the joggers before we even actually had them, right? We just had that one pair.
It was a pre-sale.
And the rest of the 250 were at least 2 months out from coming. Yeah. And we would talk about it all the time before we actually started that pre-sale, and we would always say, well, they're probably not going to sell. Hopefully we can just flip them on KSL or something and get our initial investment back. So I don't want to say we didn't believe in it, but we started small and had a backup plan for sure. It's just...
Yeah, and at that time we all were working full-time in other jobs, so the risk was relatively low. But we launched the pre-sale, and they all sold out in less than a week. And so that was super exciting for us, to get those orders coming in. And especially once we started getting orders from people that we didn't know. That was kind of the sign.
Neighbors and family. Yeah.
Exactly. That was kind of the sign. And as far as, because we ran some Facebook ads initially, Facebook and Instagram, and we were getting incredible ROAS, return on ad spend. For every dollar we were spending, we were making $15 or $16 on those initial ads, which is crazy. So we kind of knew that we had found something. But yeah, since then, I mean, that was almost 3 years ago, and we've grown a lot since then. So yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, so it started as the joggers, right?
Correct.
And now you have tops, you have hats, you have belts. Give us a little overview of all the inventory, I guess.
So the joggers definitely are our main product still to this day. We have them in 9 colors, and then kind of the timeline of how we progressed, we released belts because we felt like it was a good accessory to go with them. And then polos, and then since then we've released a bunch of new polos, layers, hats, towels, shorts. Sorry, I'm just like thinking through our website. And then we've got a bunch of new things. We just hired a full-time apparel designer at the beginning of this year. We had contracted her last year, and she designed everything that we launched on Black Friday. And so we're really excited about that because we're working on a women's line and a bunch of new stuff on the men's line.
I was going to ask about that. Consider me your first customer of
Yes.
your women's line. That's exciting.
Deal.
So my understanding is, Maddie, you were kind of the initial brains behind this, right? It was kind of your idea, and you got your cousins on board. So I want to hear from Jordan or Jason, from your perspective, when Maddie came to you with this idea, what was your first thought?
Yeah, I think he sent me a text message. I think a year ago we were trying to scroll back. I don't know if you guys have ever tried scrolling years of text. It's basically impossible, but I think my response was, let's go to lunch. I had zero faith. I was like, golf, joggers? I had never worn joggers. I wasn't a jogger guy. But I thought it was just supposed to be a little fun thing. It's like, yeah, let's earn a few bucks and we can play more golf. That was my incentive behind it.
You couldn't say no to family, or you just didn't believe in the idea. Or I guess
I didn't believe
what
in
made
the
you say
idea.
yes?
The risk was zero to me.
Okay.
I mean, we put a little bit of money up front, and it was just supposed to be this little fun thing. Yeah, we talked about, like, okay, if they don't sell, we'll just put it on KSL or give it to family for Christmas presents. And I was like, okay,
There you go.
there you go, I'm in.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So the way he sold it to me, we worked together at a company, and he came up to my desk and just brought up the idea, and I was immediately all in because he talked about how fun it would be to have a cool warehouse and do fun things together. And, you know, I love joggers. I started wearing them back in like 2015. I lived in Australia, and that's where I first saw them. So I was on board with the idea there. I don't know how much faith I had from the very beginning, but just the idea of like building something cool, like the potential of building something cool with my cousin and my brothers. Because, you know, like we said, we've done everything together, and we were actually working together. He helped me get an internship at the place I work. So it's like we already have, you know, so much history and rapport, and we know each other's personalities and everything like that. It just seemed like such a good, fun opportunity. And if it didn't work, no big deal. We still had our jobs and stuff. So.
Yeah, you still had the backup plan. So what were you guys doing at the time? So you guys worked together at 4UP, but tell us a little bit more about kind of your background. What jobs were you working before you took the jump to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so Jason and I went to BYU, Idaho. Maddie went to BYU Provo. My degree was exercise physiology. Jason was business. What were you, marketing?
Yeah, advertising.
Advertising?
Mhm.
I was going to be a physical therapist. I ended up going medical device sales. So, yeah, thank goodness I'm not doing that anymore. And, but you were...
I was doing sales operations and analytics for a software company. So.
And I worked as a product manager at
Okay.
4UP.
So I guess we'll kind of get into this later, but I'm guessing, you know, some of those skills kind of transferred over to your roles in this new company. But before we dive into that, so I want to know, Maddie, when you had this idea and pitched it to your cousins, why cousins? Why not, you know, some friends or doing it yourself? Why did you want to do this with these particular people?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was at BYU, I had a little startup. It like ultimately didn't succeed, but I learned a lot, and I learned how important it is to work with people that you really get along with, and that you can like fight with, really. And so when I was thinking about starting like a golf company, it wouldn't have made sense to do it with anyone else, because if 85-90% of the golf that I play is with them. So like if I were to start a golf company and not invite them, I basically would have been betraying them. So I didn't have a choice. But kind of seriously, like I wanted to do it with them because that's who, like, you want to be doing business with people that like I said, that you want to be with. So it was pretty easy decision, honestly.
That's good. And so if Maddie had not come to either of you with this idea, do you think you would have taken that leap into entrepreneurship? We'll start with Jordan.
No, I don't think so. I think I would be living in California, working with a orthopedic spine surgeon. That's probably where I'd be right now, but I'm in Utah doing this, which is great. Yeah.
It's hard for me to say. I always liked the idea and the abstract, but I don't know. I had a really good job and a really good path, and I was growing within the company, and I was really happy with where I was at. So, maybe, but I guess we'll never know, because
Hard to say.
I'm here now because Maddie had this cool idea, and we were all on board, and we came up with a way to grow it together. So it's just like, hopefully we can keep doing this for as long as possible, and then take what I learn, and from the future now, assuming there's stuff beyond Primo, totally for sure, because I feel like I've learned too much and had too much fun building my own thing to ever be able to go back to
You can't go back.
working in an
Yeah.
organization
Yeah.
with a boss.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, growing up, Maddie, was like, hey, let's build something, or like, hey, someday when we're super rich, we'll do this or whatever. I think he had a lot of intention, of doing something like this, and it's cool to be a part of and see it come to fruition and work, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Who knew?
That's awesome. So you guys
Yeah.
knew since you were little that something big would come, something would happen together.
It was in there. It was in the universe
when he
somewhere.
said let's build something, it was usually make up a game, or I remember we built like the world's worst skateboard out of spare parts and 2x4s. Like, he always wanted to build something, even if it, so it's just kind of his personality, but we always were like, yeah, let's do it. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so exciting and fun that you guys do it as family. So, a lot of times people say working with family is hard, or don't go into business with families. So what has your guys' experience been with that? How have you been able to manage your family relationship and your business relationship at the same time?
We've from the beginning decided to have it kind of be a chip on our shoulder, that it was going to be a strength of ours rather than a weakness. And as Jason and Jordan both have mentioned, like we've played together since such a young age that we like really know each other well. You learn a lot about a person when you're competing against them all the time. There for sure are times where we have differing opinions, but we all have a really strong trust that we're doing the best for Primo. Like, if Jordan has a thought that I disagree with, it's not, I don't think that he's mad at me or doing it because of whatever. Like, I know it's because he truly thinks that that's the best thing for Primo. And so having that trust, I think, has allowed the family aspect to be a strength more than anything.
yeah, it's just, and I know his intentions are 100% in the right spot, no matter, like he was saying, whether I think it's a good idea for the growth of the company or a bad idea. The way he sees it is what he's trying to put forward and bring to the table is going to be the best thing for Primo, and I respect that. And I always know with 100% certainty that it's going to stay that way with family. So, that's kind of my thoughts on it. It hasn't been perfect. Most of our big arguments or blow-ups are just over dumb emotional things. Mostly with the brothers. There's another brother who's not here, but it's mostly us, if I'm being honest. Maddie had to put up with a lot, but
Maddie's the mediator in the group.
yeah. But that's part of it, because we care so much. So it's a good and a bad thing. But yeah, I would say mostly it's been really good.
Yeah, I think if you're going to go into business, it's important to go into business with someone you trust. That's a huge thing. So, and I think we've got that, which is a big reason why we're successful, is trust each other.
And I think it's important. It's not just only because we're family. Like, we all bring certain skills and things to the table. A passion for golf. We all went to school for different things and had own experiences in our professional life as well. So it's not like we're just three random people who just got together because we're family, but also we realize, we have this story, we have this history, this education, and these skills. So why not have it be us as family too? So
I love that. And as we were talking about before, you all were doing jobs that were very different. We had, advertising, marketing, we had analytics, and we had medical sales.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did taking all of those skill sets and coming to build a company together work well? So, you can kind of talk about what your different responsibilities are, what you bring to the table, and just that dynamic of those different skill sets.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us are at the point that we started, we're still relatively young in our like careers, and it's not like we had 10 plus years experience doing a specific thing. But I think what we all had learned is how to work really hard and how to figure things out. And so when we started Primo, like that's how it was and how it still is. There's so much just willingness to learn. And so I would say that's, at least for me, the biggest experience that I brought into it for myself is just like not being scared of the unknown. But I honestly think that that's something that has helped us, because we didn't know like how to start an apparel company and how to like find a manufacturer or how to figure out shipping or customer service or return. Like I could list off a bunch of things that we've had to learn. We just watched YouTube videos and like looked online how to do certain things. And luckily we knew a couple people that were like in e-commerce, so we've been able to rely on them. But the vast majority has just been like figuring it out as we go and not being like too scared of failure, but just like really confident that, if we do something incorrect, like it's not a big deal. We can just learn from that and be better because of it. So.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like
And
that.
I guess you kind of asked a little bit about responsibilities.
Yeah, go for it.
So our responsibilities are, I would say, somewhat defined, but not like super defined. I will handle a lot with like our partnerships. I feel like what I've done, and this is how it's been for all of us, it's kind of evolved over time. Like from when we first started, I was the first one that went full time. And so at that point, like I was doing a little bit of everything, like the website, customer service, a little bit of sales, relationships, Instagram, social media, and then Jordan came on full time and then took over everything with customer service, and that's when he moved back from California. And then he took that over, so then I was able to kind of shift responsibilities, and then Jason went full time, and so the responsibilities have kind of continued to shift over time. But I know it's not a great answer, but that's just kind of the reality of it.
That's the reality of it. That's okay. So you talked about, at different points in time, each of you went full time. So I'm going to ask you specifically, Jordan, what was that pivotal moment when you said, okay, it's time to go all in, quit the other job, jump in with both feet?
I was in Merced, California, living with Maddie's parents, trying to start this new job. But, when I have downtime, I'm on my laptop doing customer support emails. Yeah, it was a fork in the road. I remember we all sat down at Joe Vera's restaurant, and they're like, hey, you need to go full time. You can do the whole warehouse operations. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I'll lose in the short end, but I think in the long end, I'll end up winning, and it's more fun. I mean, we do golf for a living. We're living a dream. Like, who would have guessed that this would be a reality? But it is, and so we take it seriously and want to just put our best foot forward and keep the gas on keep the pedal on the gas. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
And what about you, Jason? Because you were the last one to join full time. What was the moment for you when you made that decision?
I don't know if mine was that as exciting as Jordan's and Maddie's. I do remember that meeting at Joe Vera's. I think it's worth mentioning we all worked together there as well as waiters. It's a Mexican restaurant, so I guess that was our trial run. But like I said, I had a really good job. Things were going decently well at Primo, but I was just a little bit nervous. Like, could it support me? If I were to switch full time. But essentially, we noticed like some gaps that we had, some things that were falling through the cracks. That if I was able to dedicate more of my concentrated focus on, rather than trying to split it between two jobs, that in the long run it'd be beneficial. So it was like I made a bet on myself, and I set a date a couple of months in advance before I was going to quit my job. Be like, okay, the first of the year, 2021, 22, January 1st, 2022, was my initial, when I started full time. So it gave me an opportunity to transition out of the current job that I was in. They treated me really well, so I gave them, I think, 3 months notice, and I trained up.
And they all knew, like they're all good friends of ours, so they knew, they had been seeing
The
what
writing on the
Primo
wall,
was doing.
yeah.
I had already left, so everyone was asking Jason,
They
like,
would
when are
ask
you
me
going to
all the
leave?
time. Yeah, so I gave them a ton of notice, and then as soon as I was full-time Primo, I went from 2 jobs to 1 job, and then I was twice as busy somehow. So,
That's how it works in the startup life.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like it's part of the
Good.
grind. That's the fun part. So
I love that. So if there's anyone in our audience today that is kind of questioning, am I ready to go full time into what's currently my side gig? Do you have any advice for them about making that decision?
I love Maddie's story. I don't know if you told your story of that moment that it clicked. It's my favorite thing.
It's kind of funny. So we started Primo June of 2020, and I went full time. I think it was April of 2021. So at the beginning of 2021, there were conversations among us like, oh man, maybe I should do it. Because we all had kind of known that when someone was going to go full time, it was probably going to be me. But similar to Jason, I was in a really good spot at 4UP, and I've got a family. At that point, I had 2 kids, and so it was kind of a tough decision. But I remember we were driving back to California, my family, and because my parents lived there, they were actually moving to St. George, but we were driving to help them move. And we were driving through Reno, and it's kind of funny. I don't drink a lot of energy drinks, but like occasionally on drives, I'll throw back a Red Bull.
Gotta stay awake.
And it's now become kind of a thing with Jason and I. We're still trying to get Jordan to drink some Red Bulls, but so I drank this Red Bull, and it was like 10 p.m. and my kids are sleeping in the back, my wife's sleeping, and then of course I'm just always thinking about Primo, and things are going well. We had just released a bunch of new products, and the idea was that I wasn't going to go full time until I felt like me not going full time was hurting the company. So my mind was just like racing, like with this Red Bull, like with the wings and everything. And I was just like, man, I need to do it. Like I've got to do it. And I was going through all these things that I would do if I went full time. And then so I woke my wife up and I was like, I think I need to do it. I think it's time. And this was like January. So I didn't actually end up going full time until April. But that was the moment where it was like, I've got to do it, because there's this whole list of things that I could be doing that I can't do right now because I don't have the time to do it. So I came back from that trip and I kind of told them the epiphany that I had. And, we were a little nervous about it because, I wanted to be able to still support my family. Luckily, we were in a position, Primo was doing well enough to where, I could still pay myself. And kind of to your question of when should people make the jump? I don't know. It's a really tough decision. It's a very personal decision. For us, we were all able to kind of leave our full-time jobs and kind of comfortably move into the Primo job. And I know that's a dream, and it doesn't always happen that way, but we were able to build up the company in a way that allowed us to make that transition really easily. So I went full-time. We had to have discussions about how we were going to handle that, like compensation and everything, because up until that point, we hadn't paid ourselves, I don't think, anything up to that point. But at that point, we kind of came up with different ways to compensate ourselves, especially because they were still doing stuff. They weren't able to go full-time, but they were still putting in a lot of hours per week. But it was an exciting time. Pretty much right after I went full-time, I went over to, I had lunch with a guy who works at a golf course at Blue Lemon over by Shields, and we hadn't really discussed getting into retail, but after my lunch, I looked over at Shields and I was like, I'm just gonna go in there and see what they have to say. And I didn't have a full-time job, so I was like, I don't know what else I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go in there. So I walked up and went to the golf department and talked to someone and ultimately got into Shields. And it was a test run with our joggers at the Sandy Shields location, and our joggers instantly became the top-selling golf pant at that location, which was super exciting for us. And then about a month later, I got an email from Shields' corporate office, and they were like, hey, we want to put in an order for all of our stores. And so that was like an incredible experience. And honestly, like, it was pretty cool that something so quickly happened after I decided to go full time. And I knew that they trusted me and everything, but even still, like, it's nice to have a big win like that to kind of validate, like, why are we having you go full time at this point? And from then on, it's kind of just been this crazy ride.
That is very validating, getting the invitation from Shields Corporate to be in all their locations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit and talk a little more about the product. So golf joggers, how did you know that this was a gap in the market or a pain point of golfers that you wanted to supply this product? Talk more about kind of the ideation process and the validation process.
Yeah, so I had struggled to find good golf pants. I, like Jordan, was anti-joggers. I remember getting home from my mission in 2013 and like going to buy some clothes, right? And I think we stopped into PacSun, and they like showed me these joggers, and I like couldn't believe how ugly they were. I like made a decision then and there that I would never wear joggers. But then flash forward to like 2019, someone had given me some joggers that were were much better, like a stretchier material. They're kind of similar to these where they had a zipper on the side, but like a stretchy waistband. And I had started wearing them golfing. So, but you can't wear those golfing because they don't have belt loops. I mean, you can, but if you're gonna tuck in your shirt, it kind of looks funny. So that kind of got the wheels turning a little bit. And I like to golf as far into the winter as possible, but I didn't have good golf pants. So then kind of around that time, I was over at Jordan and Jason's parents' house, and Jordan was wearing these Roan, there's just another brand, Roan pants. And I was like, what pants are those? Because I could tell they were like comfortable and kind of stretchy. And I think you got them for work or something like that.
Yeah, I did.
And so that was like another thing that got the wheels turning. And then I remember there's a lot of like factors, but I remember like on Instagram I'd scroll through and see all these brands that would have these ads for like shorts and stuff like that, and thinking like, man, I could get a good photographer and run some ads for a good product and have some success. So kind of all of those things came together, and that's kind of when I was like, man, what if I just like came out with a golf jogger? Like, I've got these joggers that I kind of like, but they don't have belt loops. Like, let's come out with our own. It can't be that hard. And I think like me being that naive was kind of good in that moment, because I think if I would have known everything that it would have taken to get to like actually release a product, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, all of those things kind of led to this thought of like, and of course I looked online to see what other golf joggers there were, and there were a couple, but like I felt like I hadn't really seen people out on the golf course wearing them. Like, they clearly hadn't caught on yet. And I still think there's, even now, like a lot of room for them to catch on even more. But at that point, I just really felt like the risk was so small and the opportunity was so big that might as well give it a try.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you guys, you nailed it, because my husband loves these pants. He wears them to golf. He wears them to church. He wears them as sweats. He wears them every day. So when you guys designed them, did you think people would wear them outside of golf, or were they kind of specifically for golf, or what did you think would happen there?
We talked a lot about how we were going to market them. Obviously, we're Primo Golf apparel, so golf is in the name. Something we talked about a lot early on was, and it helped us feel safe and a little more insulated in this risk, was like, golf apparel is kind of a niche, and then you have joggers, which are also kind of a niche. So we're like a small little company entering into a niche of a niche. We always said that. So we didn't feel like we were going against, like the big Nike or Lululemon or anything like that. We felt like, okay, if we combine these two small things, it's kind of like the disruption theory that you might read about, that, we have a fighting shot. Like, we can like enter this tiny little market and then just see where it takes us. And, it's something Maddie always talks about as well, is it just happened to be the perfect product market fit. It's like what the people were looking for was, yeah, golf joggers existed, but there was very few options, and in my opinion, not quite anything that looked really that good on the course.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning that we launched right at the beginning of COVID. So when we first had the idea, the pandemic hadn't hit yet, but then the pandemic hit, and then we're like about to order our like those 250 pairs, and we're like, should we still do it? And luckily, because Jason and I were working at 4UP, and even Jason more than me, because his job was more on the analytics side, he was able to see that golf was literally exploding at the beginning of COVID because it was an activity that you could do. Like golf courses were having record numbers of rounds. And so it kind of helped us have this confidence that, I think we can do this. And yeah.
And online shopping was exploding too. So
A stimulus check.
And that stimulus check. So we're not that smart, but we were lucky. So,
Give the credit
that
where credit
helps
is due.
there.
There's the takeaway.
Well, we work hard, but yeah, we're also very lucky too. So,
I love that. That's so good. So as you guys are spending your own time on the golf courses and all these other people are flocking to the golf course and online shopping, what was it like the first time you saw someone wearing your product out in the wild who you didn't know? It wasn't a family member.
So mine was in California, which is pretty cool because we're Utah. And it was at this little course that I grew up playing. And I was on the putting green, and I see this random guy walk by in light gray joggers, and we went on the 10th tee, and I got all excited and went up to him, and I was like, "Hey, man, those are Primo." And I ended up getting his email, and I think I sent him a free pair. It was kind of weird, but that was my first time.
I can't remember my first time. The one I liked the best though, we were in California again a few months ago, and we were just playing a random golf course, and one of he's probably 17-year-old kids comes up to us and he's like, "Wow, you guys really love Primo," because we're obviously decked out in it. It's kind of a requirement at this point. I've thrown away all my other clothes. And we just looked at him when he said that, and I was like, "No, we are Primo."
We don't just like
In hindsight, it's really dumb and cheesy, but I felt really cool at the time, so I don't know. It was validating.
That's awesome. Maddie, you have a story?
I had a recent experience. I haven't even told you guys this yet. I was just in Arizona with my family, and we went to the Phoenix Zoo, and it's really kind of weird, honestly. If you sell apparel, like you find yourself looking at people's pants.
I'm staring
all
at
the time.
ankles all the time.
It's weird, and you try not to, but you just do, especially when they're joggers. But I saw two people wearing Primos, and I always like to go say something to them. And it was funny because I don't think I am, and like, whatever. They both knew who I was. They like knew my name, and part of that is because we really on social media try to like tell our story. But it was like I couldn't believe it. And my wife she was like kind of weirded out. She's like, "Why did they know your name?" But it was really
you're
cool.
like, because I'm famous now.
Because I'm famous. No, but like that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a brand that people care about, and part of that is like if you go on our Instagram, you'll see us, and we try to like tell our story, and we're trying to do it more and more, so that people can. I don't know. I feel like a lot of brands don't really do that. They don't really share much about themselves. So what we've learned and what we're trying to actively do is like create this loyal army of customers that really cares about what we are doing, cares about like we do a lot with professional athletes, and so we want them to care and feel like Primo is like this brand that represents the athletic golfer, that represents a high level of golf, that represents like good golf fashion. And so all of what we're trying to do is to create that. So for me, it was cool to like be at this zoo in a different state and talk to two guys and then have like see that it was working,
Yeah, well, it is. And I have to first know, you guys are all over the Instagram and the website. You guys model the apparel. Did you ever think that modeling would be part of your career?
No, definitely not.
It's mainly Jason.
We are actually driving straight to St. George after this to go golf, and we have our photographer Alex back here.
Yeah, shout out Alex. He's the one who makes us look good on Instagram.
Yeah.
Highly skilled.
So we're gonna go golf tomorrow and be models yet again.
We're excited to golf, but we have an 18-hole plan, hole by hole, what we're going to wear and shots like that. So it's
and
like,
the poses you'll do. And
will we ever play golf for fun again? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So I guess going back to, you were talking about sponsoring some college athletes and things like
Yes.
that. So I want to know a little bit more about your your marketing strategy and why that was part of the plan and how that's worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, on a high level, I would say our marketing strategy from the beginning has been to give off the impression that we are everywhere. And it's not an easy thing to do, and I don't think we've done it yet, but I think in a lot of ways we have. So there's no one thing that I would say makes up our marketing strategy, but we have done a lot on Facebook and Instagram, and we run a lot of ads. We run ads through Google. And working with athletes was always a really big part of that strategy, because we think about, I talk about this all the time, but or at least amongst ourselves, is this idea of perceived success and real success. Real success being, great sales numbers, high conversion rates, happy customers, low return rates, all of the things that you need to actually be running a business that can do all the things a business needs to do. But then on the other side, there's the perceived success. And most people don't know, they have no access to know what the real success is. So the only thing they have to go off of is the perceived success. So it's like, what do they see on Instagram? What do they see on YouTube? So for us, it was really important to partner with actual athletes. So to start off, we signed some NIL deals with, which is like name, image, and likeness, with a few BYU golfers. And then from there, we signed a couple guys on the Korn Ferry Tour, which is the tour, the golf tour league that's just below the PGA Tour. And then from there, we've signed a couple YouTube golfers that have big followings. And if you're in the golf world, you would know these guys. Like, their names are Micah Morris and Grant Horvat. If you're not in golf, you wouldn't know them, but like people were seeing these things happen, see us signing these golfers, and they like, I would get texts and people would be like, I can't believe that you signed this guy. For example, we had a PGA Tour golfer almost win a PGA Tour event about a month ago, and it was crazy. Like, not only was I getting a bunch of texts from friends, but like our website traffic was crazy, and we had like one of our biggest sales day ever. And so in the minds of all of our customers, they were seeing these things happen, and it was like totally in that perceived success thing. It's like, man, Primo must be killing it. And I'll see people all the time, and like they don't know what our sales are. They can't, like, there's no way for them to know, but they're just going off of what they see. And so that has been a huge part of our marketing strategy, is like having a healthy mix of both of those things, because one leads to another.
So I don't know if you have any perspective from the analytics side, but what is something that you've seen? Was there any time when you were kind of looking at analytics and you thought maybe the business was going to fail, or on the flip side, a moment that you knew it was going to succeed?
So I was talking back there a little bit about some of our constraints and bottlenecks that we have. So a lot of what I do is with digital marketing, namely allocating ad spend between Facebook ads and Instagram ads and Google, and working with teams directly that we've kind of put together. So I have experts who kind of know what they're doing, who can help me, because I just kind of show up and let the smart people figure out a lot of things, but like just strategy wise. And we go over the numbers, we talk about how well things are doing, and essentially, to answer your question, how do I know whether like things are going really well or poorly? I have to stop them from spending more ads, because the conversions are great, and they tell me, okay, you haven't even touched the surface, and I have to stop them because we're going to run out of inventory if we do that much more ad spend. And we spend quite a bit per day. So it's just like a really exciting, like behind the scenes, like, okay, this type of ad is working well. Here's the conversion rates. You can literally double it and still have a positive return on ad spend. And it just blows my mind. Like, I don't know. I just can't even believe that we're doing this.
I think there's one moment, and we've been on the good side of this question, luckily. But about a month ago, we like had a mild freak out because we thought that we weren't going to have enough inventory, and we weren't sure like when the next you know.
That's true. I'm talking to Maddie. He's talking to a lot of our manufacturers, and I just keep telling him, like, can you just email them again and again and again and keep pushing them to work faster? Because if we don't get these things going, we're going to have nothing by May. Just looking at the numbers and the trajectory and the growth rate and all of that, it's like the option is either we run out of everything or we completely cut ad spend, which, you know, it stinks, but it's also like a great problem, and we're getting better at it, at resolving it. But it's I don't know, it just blows my mind, like, every single day, just thinking how lucky we are, and, you know, who knows what's going to happen. Being an entrepreneur is kind of scary sometimes, but, you know, so far I don't think it's worth just being scared of what you can't control. It's just keep doing what you know works and keep growing. And
I think part of the inventory problem, you can tell a story. We went against conventional wisdom. I think you talk to someone's like, oh, you need to keep your SKUs or the amount of products you have, you know, limited and simple. And we went the complete opposite direction. I mean, how many SKUs do we have now for the joggers?
For every color jogger, I think we're at like 36 different sizes per color. And it's very complicated, so I'm the one who has to figure out how to reorder it. It sounds like it, yeah. So it's kind of a nightmare. Every time we have to do a reorder, I basically take a full week of time to figure it out, to try to project and, you know, figure this is what we're selling at this size of this color, and then we add a lead time onto that, and it's, you know, it's not a...
It's more of an art than a science, we found, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely both, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to factor in, okay, what growth are we going to have? Are we going to get any new retail partners? Are we going to start selling on Amazon? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? And so...
It is an art, not a science. Well, I want to give some of the credit to your success to the 5-star customer service that you guys employ. And I know that, Jordan, you've had a lot to do with the customer service side. So can you talk a little bit about your focus there and kind of your perception and how you've led that effort?
Yeah. So I remember the first time, I think we were golfing, and
We were in Mesquite.
And Maddie had his laptop, and he's like, hey, so we have emails that we have to do. And we're like, what? Emails? So we were like, okay, I'll do Monday and Tuesday, you do Thursday or Friday, whatever, and split it up. But somehow I just ended up doing it.
Well, I remember that night we were all on our laptops in the hotel room knocking out like 50 emails just because we had no idea what to expect at that point, but they just kept coming in. So we're like, we better figure out a better process for this.
Yeah. I mean, we're all consumers. We've all been with a business where the customer service is non-existent. How frustrating and annoying is that? So, you know, for me, I don't want my customer, and we're not perfect. Like, I'm sure not every customer's had a positive experience, but for the most part, I think we're pretty good at, you know, taking care of them, being prompt. And yeah, I don't do it anymore. We have someone else who does it, but it's a priority.
You still do it on Saturdays. You work every Saturday.
Yeah, I work on Saturdays still, but I don't know if that
Again,
answered
the
your
life
question.
of the startup. But no,
Yeah.
I recall you mentioning something about, you know, listening to your customers and taking care of your customers because they are ultimately the backbone of the business. And so, like you said, you guys wanted to stay on top of that and be responsive.
Yeah, as awesome as we think we are, we're not the reason Primo is where it's at. It's 100% because of our customers. And
We see it directly reflected in return customer rates, or, you know, even conversion. Like, people go on the website and they see, oh, free returns and exchanges and this and that, and in all of our, like, probably like 50% of our reviews just talk about the good customer service. And I know, you know, we did a podcast, you know, with you guys last year, and Jordan talked about that Jeff Bezos quote, which I feel like if that's what he building our customer service kind of based everything off of that.
yeah, everyone knows Jeffrey Bezos. Is he the richest guy in the world? I don't know, but Amazon. And he did an interview in the late 1990-something, but someone was asking him, he said, internet schminternet. I don't care about the internet. It's relentless customer service, customer. And I'm watching this thinking, okay, if that's the richest, most successful guy in the world, and that's what he's saying, why don't I take that same approach to my teeny tiny business? And it's just, you know, if you have certain principles that you follow, they work for a reason. So if you're going to do a business, take care of the customer. That's my...
Take care of them.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you guys one or two more questions, and then we'll open it up for audience questions. So be thinking if you have anything you want to ask. But one of those questions is kind of related to, again, back to the marketing and the different strategies you guys have been able to employ because of what your industry is. You've sponsored tournaments, you've hosted some of your own. Can you just kind of tell our audience a little bit more about those tournaments and what it's done to help you guys get more eyes on your business and product?
Yeah, we have done a couple local tournaments. I would say those specific tournaments, well, and to name them, so one of them is called the Ecom Cup, which RevRoad actually won last year. Congratulations, a team that you guys put together. So we put that on, the Ecom Cup. It's for local e-commerce companies. That's coming up later this year if anyone wants to play in that. And then we also sponsored the Provo Open, which is a tournament that's gone on for, I forget how many years. Decades at Timpanogos Golf Course that used to be East Bay, and we do those local events because we love to be involved with the Utah golf community. We work a lot with the BYU golf team, with some of the top high school golfers, and I would say those tournaments are almost more for that than anything. Even though we were lucky enough to sell all over the country. We think there's a lot of value in having a presence here in Utah.
In your community, yeah.
Yeah. And, it's fun to see people around, like I mentioned earlier, wearing our joggers. And yeah, so I really think that while those may not, push a ton of traffic to our website, it helps us talk to our customers, get in front of our customers. For example, at the Ranches Golf Course, we're sponsoring a tournament series that they're doing. I think it's going to be 10 tournaments this year, and we'll be there with a booth selling. And I think there's a lot of value in, even though we don't do a ton of events like that, to be in front of our customer and talk to them and get that face-to-face feedback, kind of along the lines of what Jordan was mentioning, to where if they've heard things, it gives us an opportunity to hear them say oh wow, I see you guys everywhere, which is exactly what I hope to hear.
Yeah.
And so it's good. It's a good gauge on how things are working.
It's an opportunity to show people who we actually are as well, which is pretty much golf nerds. Speaking for myself, my favorite thing to do is to play in these tournaments. So a lot of times we're creating them or being a part of as many as we can, just because we like to be there and play golf together as well. And the people could tell and they could see that we're not acting or pretending. And I feel like it's just all going into the brand of who we are as a company and who we're trying to sell Primo to as well, that we are legitimately golf nerds.
I love that. I think your answer to this question far surpassed my expectations, and we've had a lot of focus recently at RevRoad of encouraging our portfolio companies to talk to your customers, get outside of the office and go meet them face to face, and to tell your story, help them know who you are. And I love that. That was an awesome answer. So my last question before audience questions is, who is the better golfer between you three? I've been dying to know this whole time.
I think I have the most potential, but right now I'm struggling with my driver, but it's going to come back. I'm practicing a ton this year.
Well, it's going to be officially decided tomorrow because
at the St. George
it's between
tournament.
them for second place. You can ask them.
We're pretty close right now. Maddie's probably the best golfer.
I do play the most, though, so.
But I think things are going to change. I think there's going to be a new number one this year.
They're tied for second right now, so the next time we play officially decides second place.
Okay,
So
you'll have to
tomorrow
let
we'll
us
know.
know how it goes.
What do you think, Jason?
We had some hurt feelings a few weeks ago.
It's a big topic. We have a spreadsheet.
Maddie was saying how he thinks Jordan's better than me, but the entire track record of the past few years is the opposite of that. So it's just there's disagreement. Jordan says he has the highest ceiling. It's just not true. Maddie's the best now, but I feel like this is the year I actually practice more instead of just play. So ask
He
again
says
next
that
year.
every year.
You guys better be
Oh.
posting your scores on your Instagram story or something so
Yeah,
we
maybe
can
we
follow
will.
along the
We should.
cousin
Oh, boy.
rivalry, the founder
Okay.
rivalry. I love
Okay.
it. All right, let's go ahead and open up to some audience questions. Just as a reminder, please wait for a microphone to be brought to you so that we can be sure people online can hear us as well.
Hey, fellow BYUI grad here. You alluded earlier to the competitive landscape and how you navigated that with being a niche of the niche. How do you still maintain that as you grow and avoid maybe some of these major competitors like Nike Golf and PGA?
To be honest, I mean, of course, we do pay attention to what guys are wearing. We watch a lot of golf, so we're seeing the trends. We go play a lot, and like I mentioned, we're always watching what people wear. But we, more than anything, we've tried to like create our own style so that we don't have to worry too much about what the other brands are doing. I mean, golf's interesting, right? Like, there's only so many products that you can sell. Like, you have to have golf pants, you have to have golf shorts, a golf polo. Like, it's hard to innovate too much, but it's why I think we had some success with the joggers. None of us are wearing it today, but our most popular polo is kind of it's called a blade. We call it a blade collar polo. It's kind of a unique style. So I don't know. Like, I see what Nike and some of those big brands are doing. And of course, we have our apparel designer, Paige, who does a lot of product research and everything. So like, she is aware. But it's not a great answer, but like, we see what they're doing, but we don't let it dictate too much of our direction. A big part of our direction going forward is a big focus on the athletic golfer. So going into next year, we're going to be doing a big focus on this idea of having a training line, a performance line, and a recovery line, and having apparel that fits into all. So kind of like your gym stuff, your performance that you wear out on the course, and then your recovery, like stuff you'd wear like when you get home for the day. Like, so we can follow that journey of a golfer who, like, we've gone out and done some videos with some of our pros, and we'll spend a day with them, and they'll go to the gym in the morning, and then they'll go practice at the course, and then they'll go spend time with their family. So we want to kind of follow that journey and have apparel that follows that. So yeah, we hope to kind of create our own line. Like, I don't know, that's not a great answer, but that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah, and we still don't see us as like directly competing. Like, almost nobody has just one brand of clothes in their closet besides me. But you went to BYU Idaho, and they have great business professors. I'm assuming you were in business as well, and taking B499 and talking about that disruption theory. And when you get into the market as like just a small fish in a big pond, you do everything you can initially to not compete with those companies because you'll lose every time. But like Maddie's saying, with our different lines of going from the recovery, or performance on the course, recovery, train.
It's a work in progress.
It's definitely a work in progress, as you can tell. We're just slowly expanding as we grow and as we gain more of a name for ourselves. You'll see Nike all over on the PGA Tour, but we have a couple players on the PGA Tour as well, and it's just slowly making our way. Hopefully there, we'll see what happens, but we're just gonna keep doing our own thing and our own style of what we think Primo should be, and hopefully keep growing it to be a real competitor someday. So we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah, you had a question here, AJ?
Yeah, this comes from online. Great job, you guys, by the way. Fun story. Ann Gomez, who's in customer support, asks, with AI coming out with a bang, are you looking to lean heavily into AI for your support, or sticking with the human assets and a personal touch?
So have you guys heard of QuickBooks? I was struggling with QuickBooks yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? And I tried to get hold of their customer support. And have you ever got the robot? I don't know if you guys like the robot. I hate the robot. Maybe AI is going to be really good and you can't tell the difference. Personally, I like a human being. I'm old school, so I think we'll try to stick to that. But who knows? AI, we all hear things on the news. It probably will take off, but I think for the short term, going to be
we have a
touch.
tricky, like we were talking about with all the different sizes that we have, and it's hard enough for a human to figure it out. So I think we probably would, I don't know, hesitate to jump too quickly into that, like Jordan mentioned.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Let's go over here next, and then we'll go to TJ. Did you have a question still?
I did, yeah. Well, I'm wearing your pants, first of all.
Nice.
Yeah. I wear them everywhere. I love them to bed, including to bed. And honestly, I've had so many friends come and purchase these pants because I love them so much. So well done. Tell me how you guys you talked about getting into professional sports, getting these athletes involved. How did you go about doing that, and how has that been part of your strategy? A little bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, obviously we would get questions like, "Are you going to get someone on the PGA Tour?" And it seemed like such an impossible feat to be able to do that. Like, we didn't know anyone in professional golf. Like, we didn't have any clue where to start. But we've been lucky to kind of progress through that. So a guy in my neighborhood, he works on the on Tony Finau's foundation. So he invited us out. Tony Finau has a tournament, like a pro-am tournament before the Corn Ferry. I'm using a lot of golf terms. Before a golf tournament, and so he invited us out, and there were going to be some professionals out there. So that was kind of my first opportunity to get in front of pros. And it was perfect because I would ask them, I was like, so what do you think about joggers on the golf course? And for those of you who don't know, it's kind of dumb, but in the golf world, joggers are kind of a controversial item. Many people think that joggers don't belong on the golf course, which is another factor that we've had some success because the haters fuel the people that love it. Anyways, so I would ask the pros like if they think joggers belong on the golf course, and it'd be mixed reviews. Some did, some didn't care. But one of them was like, you should talk to this guy named Blaine Barber. He wears joggers right now. You should get him to wear your joggers. So I DM'd him that night and met up in a parking lot before his round, and he wore our joggers for the last 2 days of that tournament. And that was kind of the beginning of us getting into professional golf. So through that, he introduced us to some people. We made more connections. The next year, we had like 12 different pros wearing our stuff in that same tournament. So to see that evolution was crazy. And then I know I'm kind of long-winded on this, but essentially we had a couple guys that were in that lower level, the Corn Ferry Tour, and they all three qualified for the PGA Tour. And so then they all got bumped up to the PGA Tour, and then before we knew it, we had 3 guys on the PGA Tour wearing Primo. And so it was definitely an evolution. And now I wouldn't say that I have access to all the players on the PGA Tour, but I at least have connections to agents that if I was like, hey, can you get me in touch with the agent for Will Zalatoris or something like that, he could be like, yeah, I can't guarantee anything. But so it just took time and effort.
Well, I would say earlier on the beginning, like the very first step was just trying to get as many affiliates on like Instagram as possible. You know, some of these people had 1,000 followers, and it was just kind of more about quantity over quality. But, you know, that helped us get to a point a lot where we can see certain performers, and then we kind of go to the next level of some higher quality, whatever that means, higher quality Instagram influencers, and then, you know, some bigger names, and then all of a sudden we're getting connected to pros as well. It's because, like Maddie was talking about, the kind of a perception thing, it just kind of organically grew. And that's kind of how we've done everything, even with product development to growing, you know, with different athletes that we work with. It's just, you know, getting as small as possible, kind of, and just step by step.
Okay, TJ, we'll go with you next, and then Romney.
Yeah, quick question. You guys mentioned that you did a pre-sale, and so it was 250 pairs of joggers, right? And then you said that it was 2 months before that you started the pre-sale. What problems did you guys run in with that? Because you guys said it sold out in a week, correct? Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about the pre-sale.
You want to talk about it?
Well, I think the biggest problem was the sizing of the joggers. So it's our first time getting a bulk shipment from the manufacturer, and they all ran a size. Was it 2 sizes or just one size
It
too
was like
small?
one size, so a 32 fit like a 31 sort of
They
deal.
didn't fit anyone. So we sent them all out. Luckily, they liked the idea of it, but there's a lot of returns.
There was a lot of people as well. You try to make it as clear as possible, but they didn't realize it was a pre-sale. So 2 months later, they still haven't received their joggers. They're getting pissed. We're like, it says right there pre-sale, but that was a big thing too. But overall, there's a lot of exchanges made, but it was just a really good learning experience that eventually worked out. It's just kind of a pain in the butt.
What it allowed us to do was to quickly see if people were willing to buy our product. I think it's I remember I took some entrepreneurship classes at BYU, and they really focus on validation, which of course is important, but sometimes a little too much on validation. And I think the actual true validation is someone going to put their credit card in and buy your product. Like, you've got to get to that point as quickly as possible, because you can have everyone and their mother tell you that they will buy your joggers, but until they've got to, put up the money, that's the true sign if people want your product. And luckily, people liked it enough that despite the sizing issues, they still loved them.
Another benefit with all the headaches as well, but the validation that came with it is that, we're bootstrapped. We didn't get any investment, so it allowed us to purchase more inventory, because it was like, now we have money coming in, and now we can pay for more pants since we have that validation. So it got us off to a good start, even though there was a lot of risks involved. It's kind of crazy to think that's how we started, but to sell hundreds of pants without even having them. But I'm glad we did it that way.
And it's fun to think back to that time, because 250 pairs felt like so many. But it's fun now to get these big shipments and, I don't know, sell that many in one
Look
day.
how far you've come. Yeah. Okay, we'll do our last question here, but for those of you that still have a question, feel free to stay after, and during lunch you can try to grab them off to the side and ask a few questions. So yeah, go ahead.
I have a comment that leads to a question. First off, congratulations on your success. It's an awesome story. So years ago, I did a startup with a first cousin. We were best friends until he informed me that he was going to go solo, and I'd quit my job. I was newly married. I was devastated. And I'm an optimist, so this is going to sound negative, but I ran into my dad's cousin, who's really wise, and he said, "Oh, well, there are two, have you heard about the 2 seats in heaven?" And I said, "Where are you going with this?" "No." And he said, "It's for the 2 partners that actually make it." I thought, wow, that is so negative, but okay. I was feeling that. And so I thought a lot about this conundrum and this opportunity of working with someone you're close to, and how you have good relationships and trust, but how you hold each other accountable. So I'm a big fan of the book, The E-Myth Revisited, that talks about making sure the functional org chart is owned and there's accountability. But do you mind elaborating on how you hold each other accountable? Do you have systems or a process in place? Do you have an outsider that comes in if things get emotional? And what happens if in 3 years one of you wins the lottery, wants to buy a private island, and disappears? Like, what happens to the partnership? Is that a fair question to ask?
Yeah. In regards to the accountability, I wouldn't say we have a great system in place. We talk a lot. I think probably the best thing is that we currently all have one shared office. So we talk all the time. I think that's probably the best thing. And we do have meetings scheduled to just review things, and but more than anything, there's just so much going on, and we have so many responsibilities that if we were to not fulfill our responsibilities, it would become, so obvious, So it's a great thing, and it's something that we talk about, like how often should we be having meetings? How often should we be reviewing certain things? How do we make sure that, we have certain responsibilities and certain ownership? It's, again, one of those evolving things.
But from the beginning, even before we started selling anything, we did have an operating agreement, and we tried to get as much, in writing as possible, because you hear the horror stories of the bad things that are probably more common than not. So we do have those in place, but yeah, like Maddie was saying, more than anything, it's just we all trust each other when it comes to we want what's best for the company. And, it's easy to see when, Jordan's working all day Saturday, or Maddie's like figuring out 15 different things that he has no idea how to do prior, but he's figuring it out. And, it's almost like the idea of not pulling your weight when you could, it kind of makes you sick to my stomach, or at least it would me. Like, we're all entrepreneurs, and we love the idea of the grind and building something, and kind of that keeps ourselves accountable in a way. Is that the best, safest way to do it? Maybe not, but so far it has worked pretty well. And
yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's something that will always be a factor that we have to consider. because hopefully we don't have a scenario like that. But yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and wrap things up with one final question that we always like to ask our guests on stage, and that is, what is something fun that your success has allowed you to do?
I already kind of mentioned it, but I think when we had a player on the PGA Tour in contention a few weeks ago, I was riding a high that day. It was literally, we actually just filmed like a little video on this, but like it was like the Super Bowl, and it was as if like my team was about to win the Super Bowl, and like Jason has referred to us as golf nerds, and I may be the golf nerdiest of the three of us. Like having a PGA Tour golfer like wearing our stuff on TV, showing our logo, I couldn't believe it was happening, and it was just so unbelievable. If anyone has read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, not to compare ourselves to Nike in any way, but that was like a big factor of their success early on was having Olympians wear Nike shoes for him. And then that progressing to other sports. So that was always, when we started, kind of going to be a factor of our success, is like, are we ever going to get someone on tour? And then we did, and it was just unbelievable.
Trying to think, for me, my favorite thing in the world, I said this earlier, is playing golf with my brothers and my cousin. And we just had the opportunity to do that basically all over the country. We travel a decent bit, and it's just the funnest thing in the world. So even like a month from now, we're going to go back to our hometown to sponsor this little tournament on our home course, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not a huge deal, but it feels so good to be able to go back where it all started and just be able to play golf with my brothers and my cousin. And, I just always think about like, man, how lucky am I that this is my job, this is my life. It's just so fun, and it's really, really, really hard sometimes, but ultimately it's just the opportunity I have to do all these cool things and experiences and grow something and go through the pains of that as well. It's just, I wouldn't have it any other way, so it's just really cool.
Yeah, for me, a few years ago, I was waking up 5:30, 6 in the morning, getting in the car. I was driving from Orem to Lehigh, Salt Lake, Ogden, even Logan. I had to be in the operating room by a certain time. I wouldn't eat till maybe 2 in the afternoon. I'm not getting home till 6 at night. But now after this conference, we're going to go to St. George and play a golf course on Friday. So, yeah, my life's way better from what it used to be. So, very, very grateful.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your story. Just to thank you for your time, we have some RevRoad swag bags here for you. But again, just thank you so much, and thank you for participating with your questions, and let's give them a round of applause.